There are two people in Washington, D.C. who speak softly and carry a big stick. One of them is Joe Biden, and he's not even in D.C. anymore. The other is Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, who just used a big old piece of hickory to take Trump to the woodshed. I'm going to show video of Roberts firing a warning shot over the bow of the SS Drumpf as Roberts slowly tries to bring back the power and the credibility of his court. Ever since the disastrous overturning of Roe, the Roberts Court has lost a ton of credibility, but nothing has damaged the Supreme Court more than its ridiculous immunity ruling. John Roberts has a lot of pride in his work, but you have to go back to Dred Scott to find a more ridiculous, extra-constitutional ruling than this Supreme Court's immunity ruling. And that's where the hypocrisy of this court came into full view. Roberts, like most of the justices, views himself as an originalist, and he just asserted that view in the same interview where he warns Trump. Here's Roberts on originalism.
And should justices think about those practical consequences when they're interpreting the words of the Constitution?
Mainly no to both of those questions. Because if you do that, with one exception I'll talk about later, but if you do that, you're kind of putting yourself in the place of the legislator. If you decide one of those or the other based on your view of what you think is best, you would be substituting your own view for that of the people who wrote the Constitution. So, no, I don't think that's not a big part of at least how I do my job, sort of what a purposivist approach is what people would call that, because I think you're making yourself the arbiter of what people were trying to accomplish in that law. What you really need to be doing is sitting down and reading it, in its appropriate context and trying to figure out what they meant.
And this is the confusing thing about Roberts. You fundamentally cannot stand on the Constitution and claim immunity for the president. It is nowhere in the Constitution. And even the originalist zealot Alito, who goes back to 12th century tomes on witchcraft to justify his rulings, argued that the president must have immunity, not because it's in the Constitution, but because bad actors could plague a future president with criminal charges. The 5 and 6 justices who made that immunity ruling were the only people on this earth that didn't understand that given immunity, Trump would become an autocrat. And ever since the re-election that they handed to him, Trump has been defying the courts, and just last week tried to bring the control of the courts under the executive branch. Roberts has done his best to avoid a direct constitutional conflict and crisis, especially with decisions, but he finally issued a warning to Trump via this interview. Watch.
The only real political science innovation in our Constitution, parliaments have been around for 800 years, and obviously executives, is the establishment of an independent judiciary. Even places you think are similar to ours, like England, the judiciary in England was part of Parliament. They sat in the House of Lords, and because Parliament was supreme. But in our Constitution, judges and the judiciary is a co-equal branch of government, separate from the others, with the authority to interpret the Constitution as law and strike down, obviously, acts of Congress or acts of the president. And that innovation doesn't work if it's not, the judiciary is not independent. Its job is to obviously decide cases, but in the course of that, check the excesses of Congress or of the executive, and that does require a degree of independence.
Now, he never mentions Trump's name, but there is no way he is speaking purely in the abstract there. You'll notice he paid particular attention to saying that the court does more than just rulings. Its job is also preventing excesses of Congress or the executive. Also, look closely at his reaction to the crowd. It's a very quick gesture. Roberts hears the applause and realizes he must acknowledge the crowd, and so he very quickly does. It's a fast thank you. Why is it so quick? because Roberts is painstakingly trying to wrap his message up in the cover of speaking in the abstract. If he acknowledges and then relishes the cheers of the audience, then there is an undeniable recognition that he was very much speaking about the Trump administration. He makes it quick to be polite, but to also very subtly acknowledge, yes, that's what I'm talking about. Roberts wanted to send a signal, not provoke Orange Mussolini. So even though it was designed to be a quiet message on delivery, it's a very loud statement to Trump. This court will not roll over for you. The big question is not, did Trump get the message? Of course he didn't. He's too much of a dimwit. Susie Wiles or someone is going to have to explain it to him. No, the real question is whether Trump is going to try and put the court under his thumb anyway. Given that he's a pathological narcissist, the answer to that question is, of course he's still going to try. Then what is Roberts going to do? That's the question we all want an answer to. I'm Anthony Vincent Gallo for Occupy Democrats.